stay live. The connection's been a bit dicey in Lombok, but it's been a really nice time. I have actually recorded a video of this topic, and I'm still kind of uploading it, but I am here, and I felt like going live just to discuss insights around the rise of the empaths, essentially, on planet Earth, and collectively what it means around this paradigm shift and this evolution of consciousness on this planet, and how it's one and the same of transforming the matrix as we know it, or transforming this enslavement matrix, this matrix of separation and fear and limitation. And so the rise of empaths is an evolution in our understanding of how energy works and how we as beings create on the planet. And as we unify that, we begin to understand that we're agreeing. We agree to this evolution. We agree to transforming this matrix. Just like on a certain level, we agreed to the other matrix. It's just that there's some dark web and insidiousness around the nature of that agreement, because it's in the dark, essentially. So a lot of us and a lot of humanity were enslaved, you could say, a little bit against their knowing as souls. And so part of what I'm addressing is intelligence and privilege, when it comes to certainly my culture, where I come from, modern Western civilization, as it were, as a Canadian who now lives in England, spent a lot of time in America, that, we call this system, it's a widespread media mind control agenda, systematic indoctrination around collective history that we all agree to, and a denial of more power, essentially, a denial of the essence of creation here, the denial of history as well, like a broader human history. So a big part of our work, you could say, is to own our emotions, and then ultimately the more we do this inner work, the less we're interested in the distractions. Now, part of my path is that my intuition was always guiding me, really, since I was 19, and so I never really aligned with the distractions as part of just obviously my own soul's journey and growth. And the awareness that I've had is things like shopping, just generally like buying stuff, even consuming. I did a share about quite a while. Even the fact that I've been intuitive is kind of going against how the distract mental loops, where I talk about destructive patterns that get us into really bad debt, or patterns that toxic increases and gets worse. And now I've experienced those, hence why I wrote the book, is that what I recognize is against our true self. We are unconscious until we see it and choose to align ourselves with a new, essentially a new, and hopefully like a higher one, where we can stop pattern into something benevolent, patterns us and joy, what we're truly in our heart space desiring versus what we were programmed to desire, i.e. a big house and fancy clothes and the material stuff, right? And for me, the true like grace and joy of life really does come from this, and it comes from human connectivity. I like stuff. It's not announcing the material world. It's not about making, because that's an edge of judgment and denial that you see in some spiritual communities. It's part of separation as well. Separation mentality is that, oh, if you're spiritual, you're not going to want to buy lots of stuff. And of course, there's huge hypocrisy in that, is that any of us living in the material world in our bodies, if we have stuff, we have stuff. So you can't really judge one person's material world versus another, whether it's an ashram or a mansion. So you're allowed to have all the things that you want. I just have, in my own journey, found that connecting to the heart doesn't, you, you simply, you don't necessarily what you're programmed. And so I'm finding the path, the mission, liberating, and the discernment and the intuition just gets more refined. So we amplify our intuitive gifts, and we're less concerned about the distractions because we're owning our emotional field, which is essentially transforming our bodies and transforming our DNA and breaking ancestral patterns. And then hence we begin to vibrate the new. We begin to vibrate higher frequencies, which gives us access to higher thought, which, if you imagine like a web, it just allows us to make sense of creation in a more universal way versus like earthly, i.e., let's manifest more money, let's manifest more stuff so I can be important in this world, that sort of thing. So that's the kind of egoic projection of law of attraction or manifestation from from a core wound of separation. And I can feel it. I can feel it in. That's probably why I've come off social. Is like, and again, it's not my place to judge. It's well-meaning, good-hearted people, I'm sure. There's still a lot of grasping energy, though, and it really does astound me sometimes. The subtle, the subtle games people play to vie for a time, or to look impressive or look important, and even say one thing one day and then another day say another thing, and you just, at the end of the day, we can only be true to ourselves. And when we project stuff onto people, it's usually just because we're not really doing the work, and we're just perpetually distracting ourselves with the complaints. And ultimately, we distract ourselves by focusing on what other people are doing or not doing, right? And that is ultimately quite hurtful to an empath, like energetically, when somebody's doing that. So I suppose I really am here for empaths, for those who consider themselves empaths. And as I continue to rise in my integrity, I I'm as a business pioneer and a new paradigm business pioneer, having to really claim my sovereignty in discerning the energies that I work with, which is that's this is part of this next phase for me, is really tuning into field and saying no. That's all. Which those of you who are empaths really understand that that is sometimes the most difficult thing. So saying no and continuing to stay true to your heart and feeling and listening to the intuition and knowing your truth. That's all there is to it. And the more you align with that, the less distracted you are, because you're no longer in denial of the truth of your beingness and the fact that you are the creator here. You are the one creator here. And we needn't allow other people's energies to dictate to us what we should be creating ultimately. And those of us on the path own our own world. And so the more you own your world, the less someone else can come along and tell you how to own it, right? And that's the power of the Fearless Life Guide for those who genuinely resonate with it and earnestly feel into it as a method of healing, transformation, and claiming sovereignty. I'm no longer aligned necessarily with using the word ascension because I actually feel that we're all already ascended beings, and or in the truth of it, ascension is when we leave the body, when our energy body leaves the physical vessel. That's as everyone ascends every time they die, right? So that's just a newfound perspective around that, and that the truth of it is like an ascension symptoms are just the process, the alchemical transformational process of shape shifting our bodies to be more light filled, to be healthier and more in alignment and more in harmony with the truth of our being, which means we can show up how we inner desire, and that ultimately we can maintain our bodies and stay really well all of the time. And we have a shift of perspective around what illness is, what disease is, and actually have a shift of perspective around everything, relationships, food, because the entire set point is transformed from within the one knowing that anything encountering you is in alignment with the truth of your being, which is what you're choosing, which ideally is, happy, healthy, in harmony, and living well and living in grace on this planet. So I hope that was useful to you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you. You know I do. And feel free to head to alltolove.com. Some of you have, and you've subscribed, which I'm so thankful for. And I'm looking forward to updating you from New Earth Haven in Bali, in Ubud, and to share just a little taster of the interview with Sasha. And otherwise, if you want to book a session, feel free to head over to alltolove.com. Some of you who have booked, you're welcome to. The scheduled times are just a kind of rough point. Some of you can just, if you pay a deposit, you can then just reach out to me via email or Facebook Messenger. I'm no longer on Messenger or Instagram, but you can reach out and pay the deposit, and then we can discuss, because you guys are all over the world, and some of you are personally in touch with me booking sessions, which is why it's quite useful to be flexible around times, because it's not just those times that I have sessions. So it's nice to be really flexible around being able to take a call and share space with each other and see what comes through for you on this beautiful guided path. I love you guys loads. Have an awesome day. Peace out.